quality at this point. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate you taking time out of your summer to be here to talk about the tentative agreement we have. And hopefully everyone has a copy of the slideshow. Does anyone not have a copy of the slideshow at this point? All right, excellent. Like I said, if you have questions, please raise your hand and we'll try to get to those just as quickly as we can. So one of the things that we need to kind of come to grips with is our district's financial position. And this is kind of a lens that we had to look through in negotiations. And this isn't information that the district gave us, this is information that our team gathered from the Department of Education website. So everything that we're going to talk about has been verified by our team. But basically, the district's concerns were, again, to increase their fund balance. On average, the average fund balance is about 14.2%. In our conference, it's 12.7%. At the end of this year, all right, our fund balance was 3.15, it will be 5%. To give you some perspective, I pulled 26 districts worth of data going back 15 years. And I can tell you that we've had the lowest running fund balance for the last 5 years. That fund balance got down as low as $300,000. So when the board says we want to increase our fund balance, that's just like the nest egg. If an unforeseen cost comes, that's what the district has to draw on. Now, I'm not here to make excuses, but I'm here to offer an explanation about how we reached the settlement and some of the things that we kind of experienced as a team and the things that really affected the negotiations process. The district is projecting about 100 student decrease, basically. Every student, give or take, with all the funding, is about $6,000. So they're projecting that next year we're going to lose 100 students. That's about $600,000. All right, and the district has said we're not going to cut any teachers. Instead, we're going to take that $600,000 loss of the money that we've been given through the biennium and the local tax revenue, and we're going to eat that $600,000. So no one loses their job. And the last thing, this was kind of the other big priority for the district, was to bring all groups to the conference median, or at the very least, halfway to the median. So a quarter of the way up the pay scale. We have some groups, and again, this is not to offer excuses, to offer an explanation. We have some groups that are they're the lowest paid groups of those conference schools, and that's just a fact. And that's something that, again, affected the negotiation. Just the chronology. When we started this as a team, we were elected in March. That's about 27 months ago. My youngest child was 1. I weighed 195 pounds and I was clean shaven. Now I look like this. He's 4 and I weigh 210 pounds. So, but it's not like we didn't go through the process. We met 12 times, went through 3 mediation sessions, and it's been going on 2 years now. All right, the other thing is FPAC recommendations. They recommended things. We want to add back programming. All day, everyday kindergarten, we've got to pay that back. That costs $715,000. FPAC decided, as a committee, we think that's a priority. We need to shift that money back. And the last thing is, we really tried to explore all conceivable options, including arbitration. And this was probably about a month ago. This is kind of the thing we were hanging our hat on. This is our last best hope. And we sat down with Gary Westdorf, who's Dwayne Anderson, he's our Education Minnesota field staff person. And we sat down with Gary, we sat down with one of Education Minnesota's experts on arbitration, Andrea Ciccone, and they basically took us through, here's what arbitration is, here's the process. And then we got to, here's how we think your case is going to go. They said basically, an arbitrator looks at 2 things. They look at the statewide average settlement. It's 4%. You guys are asking 2%. You look good. You look great. The other thing you look at, and the arbitrator looks at, is fund balance. And your fund balance is terrible. In fact, Andrea from Education Minnesota, who's the expert in arbitration, said, we think you could make a compelling case. The numbers are on your side, except for that fund balance. And if you went to arbitration, you would lose. So arbitration no longer became a viable option, not in the opinion of Mike Stoffel or Ryan Fearig or Deb or Dwayne or Ryan or Michelle or Susie or Jamie, but in education or in the opinion of the experts that our union dollars go to pay to fix that advice. So we didn't go through it willy-nilly. We tried to take our time, as I'm sure you all are aware of, follow all the steps, all the procedures, all those things. And we had those discussions. So what were we trying to do in this negotiation? Well, we wanted to crystallize the firm up, to get it so it doesn't change another 10 times in 9 years. We tried to hopefully come up with a solution for the middle school schedule. We tried to work on having an equitable workload, unfreezing our ICDIP staff members, and then retaining dollars on the teacher contract. Those are our priorities. So, we've got changes. Some big changes, some small changes, and try and go through most of those. If you do want, we do have I have a limited number of struck out copies of the contract. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty details of it, go right ahead. Again, you can be on that presentation, or we do have, again, plenty of handouts of kind of the summarizes the changes. So, the revolving schedule. Initially, we went for a period-defined date. How many periods does the district want? Do you have a 6-period day? You have a 5-period day? What do you want? We'll work with you. Let's write contract language. And then it's like, no, that is an inherent managerial right that we have to change the schedule however we see fit and best for students. We said, okay. So how do we go about solving that? And through the hard work of Ted Gearing and Tyrone Schmidt, we came up with some prep time language. In addition to that, also what has been termed the Master Schedule Change Advisory Committee. Basically, anytime a master schedule change, so this is a 5-period day to a 4-period day. This isn't a change from your lunch period at 11:42 to 12:03. This is a master schedule change, something that's going to basically affect the entire building. When that's going to be considered, the union's going to have some type of input. Right? And again, it's an advisory committee. All right? That's what we were able to get along with the prep time language. So, prep time. Basically, it establishes a 25-to-5 or a 5-to-1 ratio for instruction. If you're instructing 25 minutes, you get 5 minutes of prep. All right? And this is something that we debated back and forth. We talked about quite a bit. And we didn't always necessarily agree to it, but we did come to a consensus that we thought this is one of the key factors to solving, hopefully, the middle school schedule. Right now, the middle school schedule has a 6-period day. You instruct for 5 periods. You have 1 period of preparation. So, that to me works. If you go to a 7-period day, they want you to instruct 6 and give you 1 period of preparation. Minutes-wise, that doesn't work out. It has to be that 25-to-5 or that 5-to-1 ratio. John, you had a question?
So this isn't going to be retro to last year?
No.
And specials will teach exactly the same schedule as other instructors in the middle school?
The language that will govern them will be the same language that governs every member of this union, whether you're an elementary teacher, high school teacher, middle school teacher, etc. I can't tell you because I don't know what the exact schedule is.
Well, specials teach an extra class instead of a focused learning in the middle school.
Then they should receive additional preparation.
And how does that work in the schedule?
I'm not the principal. I don't know. I'm not trying to be rude, but that's not my job. That's the job of the administrators. And if it comes up or that becomes an issue, putting on my different hat as the members' rights person, then that's gonna come to me. And then we're gonna try and solve that issue. 12th class assignment. It was taken off the table. And in the process of mediation, the district came with their last best offer. And basically that means we're through with mediation, this is it, you can take it or leave it. And that's the power that the management side has in mediation. They say this is our last best offer, and then you're done with mediation and you're on to the next step, or you can accept the offer. And this came about a little bit before that, but this was, again, a part of that process. So basically, if you're a high school teacher, you're gonna be teaching 12 classes. It's not for free. I know that's been the rumor going out there, but that money, instead of being given directly to high school teachers, will be spread out throughout the salary schedule. I know that's a tough pill to swallow. I know it is in my house because we have 2 high school teachers. And I have to be honest, my wife doesn't really like it. But when we looked at it, again, taking a step back, and that's part of our job as negotiators, is to advocate for our sites, but it's also to have a broader and a more global view. And it might make sense to a high school teacher that, yep, I teach 12th grade, I'll say language arts since that's what I teach. That takes a lot of time. It's a lot of time out of, yep, I understand it. But what it comes down to is we had school board members say, how can you say you want everything to be equal and fair when you have one group of people who is teaching substantially less than every other group? And that just didn't come up once, they came up more than that. It came up in mediation, it came up in regular negotiation sessions, it came up in sidebars. So when we looked at it, we think it addresses the issue of equity between the sites. If you're an elementary school teacher, according to our folks on the negotiating team, you instruct about 299 minutes, and you're in direct student contact for about 315 minutes. I'm sure there's a little bit less on some, a little bit more on others, but we thought that was the general kind of rule. If you're a middle school teacher, you're going to instruct for 275 minutes. You have a 28-minute focus learning. That adds up to 303. If you're a high school teacher now with the 12th class assignment, it's 272 minutes of instruction and 302 minutes, or probably right around 300, depending on if you have A, B, C, or D lunch, 300 minutes. And this is not retroactive. We're not going to go back and take away the 12th class assignment. It's like we're not going to go back and add the 12th class assignment to the middle school. This will be for 2014-15 going forward.
Mike,
Oh. Yep, go ahead, Scott.
in the struck out version of this, obviously this is high school specific, but it says the regular class of teachers in 5-grade day receives 12 classes and 1 study hall supervision. But how can that be? Is that a mistake?
Yeah, it's 12 classes, and yeah. I mean, if they want to assign someone to study hall, the district has the right of assignment. They can say, you know, we don't need you, Scott, to teach a 12th marketing 2 class or sports and marketing class. We need you to do a guided study hall down in the PC room.
So basically, you don't lose your prep time.
No, nope, you'll have 4 periods of instruction, 1 period of prep. Yep. All right. Oh. So that's what we call student contact. That's where you're responsible for students. After the bell is rung at the start of school, up to when the bell rings, ending school. So this is like at the middle school and high school level, we have what's called directed study time. So in order to get all our kids through lunch here at the high school, for example, we run 4 lunch periods. We have classes basically doing 2 lunch periods, you have lunch, and then you have directed study, where a student has an opportunity to go to teachers, to make up work, to finish up their homework, to go to their NHS meeting or DECA meeting or whatever it might be.
And then we get 5 minutes for every 25 minutes we teach.
Correct.
That's the 290, that goes off to 299.
Well, that was the situation that we talked about. I don't know what everyone's individual specific situation is. I would assume that they're all relatively the same. This is the experience that our negotiating team said, here's the experience of the average elementary teacher. This is the feedback we get. We think there's probably, if you round up, 5 hours of direct instruction. We should receive 1 hour of prep. And again, that'll come in at least 1 or 2 uninterrupted blocks. And it includes the language that you have to have at least 1 period that's 30 minutes long.
And that's beyond our lunch.
Mhm.
Or is our-
You are guaranteed I believe, contractually a 28-minute lunch period. Yes, your lunch does not count twice.
I got a question, like, when you back to the slide with 300, is the middle school day being, because isn't it currently like 12, 15 minutes shorter than the high school day?
Yes,
So
I believe it is.
How does the middle school in the new one have 303 and the high school has less?
I believe, and again, this is what I would say is a administrative, this is a district decision, but basically they have shorter passing periods.
We have a shorter prep period.
Only in 6 periods.
Oh. Okay, so one of the things we started on our last contract was, and one of the things that kind of Education Minnesota has made a concerted effort towards is making the lives of our special education teachers just a little bit easier. So this is intent language, but basically on the right-hand side, I wish I had my little pointer here. We have the recognition that due process time is a part of those special education teachers' jobs. Their job isn't just to be in front of students directly instructing. Their job isn't just to support students in the classroom. Their job just isn't, it's not just all those things. It's all those things, and it's, oh, by the way, we need you to write an IEP. You've got to do an eval. Could you set up this meeting? Da, 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 da. And that has to be recognized. All right, and we think this is another positive step in that process of earning that recognition and putting it into the contract. So basically, yes, due process and time to do that vital part of their job is necessary. And this also allows our special education teacher leads to meet with the director to give feedback to Tim Finn. Hey, this part is working, this part isn't working. And we have a way to, at least in some small way, shape, or form, to hold the district accountable and say, look, you said here's what you wanted. We think this is important. We're going to put this in the contract, but that's not what you're saying. It's not what you're showing through your actions. Here's what needs to happen. Here's what needs to change. Yes, John.
Was there any clarification as to what are the responsibilities of licensed staff to attend IEP meetings before, during prep time, or after the school time day?
No, that was not an issue that came up directly in negotiations. That would be a procedural issue. Again, that comes down to the building and the site. I think Mr. Finn has been in the process of making those procedures equal throughout the district. I believe that he knows that's a problem. I believe he's trying to address it. But that did not come up in negotiations as an item. Yes, Ms. Nelson.
Describe, prep time then, is prep time the time where they have to go
prep time is time during the student day. So when the bell rings, till when the bell rings again. Your prep time has to be in between those. No, no. No, it's not. Good question. Okay. The thing that probably most people are here for. There's a salary increase of 1.46%. It's 0.77 in the first year, 0.69, and we believe that this settlement is a direct reflection of our district's financial situation. According to the best numbers in Education Minnesota can come up with, our district, financially speaking, is in the bottom 10% of districts statewide when it comes to fund balance. So, what is your increase? Well, if you go to the next slide, and again, we have a little worksheet for your math teachers. Hopefully, we can help out people who get a little confused. But basically, year one, there's your increase. That's all retroactive. Okay. Year two, first spit, this is, thank you, Brian. For year two, there's our increase, and then you're going, well, that number plus that number doesn't equal that number. Well, that's because this number carries over. So really, at the end of the upcoming school year, if you were at Teacher 1 BA, with the retroactive pay, if you were here last year, you would receive $935 additional dollars. If you're at Career 3, you got $605 the first year, you got $499, almost $500 the second year, plus the $605, and that's going to give you your $1709. Hopefully all my numbers add up. This doesn't include movement. So if you're like me, I'm my 10th year last year, I'm going into my 11th year, I'm going to move from Teacher 3 MA to Career 1. I'm not just getting the $1,200, but I'm also getting the movement through the salary schedule. Okay? So you can see hopefully what your financial situation is. Yep, year one, I got an additional 468. This upcoming year, year two, I'm going to get 417, plus my movement, that's going to equal this amount for me. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and the district knows that insurance is a problem. I will tell you, the district has not touched insurance with any group. As a matter, if you're a director, a principal, a teacher, an EA, custodians, they have touched it because it is a millstone around our neck at this point. I mean, we have very high rates of chronic morbidity, and that's part of the reason why our health insurance has, I would say, in my 10 years, steadily gotten worse. At the same time, the cost has steadily increased. We looked at, speaking of options, we did look at PEAP, the Public Employees Insurance Program. I believe they've been operating 6 years. Their average increase is right around 2%. If our insurance keeps increasing at the rate it has been, that will be a very viable option for us, probably at the end of next year or the year after that. But if I had the solution to our insurance problem, I would be printing money in my backyard. I wish I did. I'm sure the district is because, well, they have a fixed cost, but it's a reason why people don't come to our district. It's a reason why we literally have EA members who work an entire 2 weeks and don't get a paycheck because all their money goes towards insurance. I see 2 questions. We'll go to John and then Mr. Pinson.
What about the NeoPath fiasco that we've got, and how much does it cost our district to subsidize that program?
So Neopath and according to the insurance broker, who is Wells Fargo, I think it was $179 for day one, and then it's like $168,000 for 2 days a week for the entire year. And basically, they calculated out that the district could probably save, what was the number, Ryan? Do you know, 7?
We spent an entire session meeting with Neopath, trying to put it on the table and get it moved forward. But when we looked at it, and we ran the numbers, and they showed us their numbers on medication savings, and it ended up in, it was the $350,000 worth of medication savings that our members are seeing. And then even if we went to shut it down, the district would recoup all that money, and they could decide what to do with it. And so the benefit then all of a sudden is we're giving the money back to them again and not seeing any of the benefit necessarily back on the teacher contract. So we continue to push.
Down by employees and retirees. Has anybody thought about that?
Yes, we did. They don't currently have the ability to do that. That is something that we talked about, we did bring up with the CEO of Neopath. I would also say that's also not a part of the negotiations process. Neopath is not a negotiated benefit. It doesn't have to be a negotiated benefit. It isn't right now. But we did take an entire meeting to talk about that. That really is the job of the insurance committee, the HR director, and those people. We can have input on that, we can have say on that, but
We provided at that meeting some pretty extensive feedback as far as a lot of those bad experiences you had written to us. My feeling, at least, and I'd say the group felt like they took that feedback and are hoping to make changes and improvements. We're going to try to hold them as well as we can accountable for that. All we can do is make strong suggestions because, again, it's not a negotiated benefit. But when you're talking, and some of the stories you've given us have been absolutely horrendous, and we forwarded it to them, and even the school district administration, or at least will say, I've never heard of this before. This is embarrassing. And so it wasn't like let's all hug around the table and talk Neopath. It was really one of the most embarrassing parts of our entire negotiation process, was bringing some of this to light and them saying they'd never heard of it. So continue to gather that information, and we'll get it to the people that it needs to get to, because they need to get the feedback in order to make the changes.
all right, Mr. Lipinski, and then we'll go to Mr. Stedman.
A number of years ago, probably it's 5 or 6 now, the state of Minnesota was looking at providing insurance to teachers, and I believe it was the same kind of insurance that state workers received. And the problem was Tim Valenti, who was standing in the way of that. Now we have a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor. Why is that not approved? That's beyond our control.
Yeah, statewide health insurance, I think that's what you're talking about. To give you an idea, David Lindbergh did go down and testify before the House Committee on statewide health insurance, talking about how terrible and awful it was. Not to demonize anyone who's not here, but there was a strong opposition at, I'll call it the district level, to anything like that. So even if that was an option, I don't think our district, under the past leadership with Mr. Lindbergh, would have jumped on board with that. But Ryan has some additional information and works pretty involved with Education Minnesota. So,
As a member on the governing board, the last couple of years they've been pushing for that, and they've really been trying to get it taken care of and had no success, even as the legislature switched. And it came into this year and it looked like we were still not going to get any success with it. So Education Minnesota has changed its strategy and tried to, this year was successful in really pushing through some healthcare transparency laws to make sure that even if we were to go out for a healthcare bid, it requires that PEEP is allowed to be a part of that bid and required to be a part of it. And it makes it so that you can't have health insurance companies that would come in and say, okay, it's a closed envelope thing, everybody submits, except for Health Partners, who gets to peek just a little bit and see what everybody else's bid is, and then come in like 10,000 under. And so it's hopefully creating a more competitive process. I know Education Minnesota will continue to push for public employee healthcare, but that's also why we've given a critical look to PEEP, because it's kind of the opt-in version of some of that. It's just when we look at the numbers, it would look at a significant increase that we didn't think our membership would support, such as maybe another $150 increase per month, but then smaller increases as the years go on. So that's when we looked at it 2 years ago, that was the problem is, okay, we need $150 from you now every single month, but then every year after, you won't see these huge jumps. And we didn't know, negotiation standpoint, we didn't want to piggyback it all at the same time. Here's an increase, and then, but we're going to eat it all up in healthcare by switching to this other program. So that's why it's another program we'll look at again in the future, and we're going to go down the avenue again to give another examination with maybe some folks who really held it up out of the way. And hopefully we'll get a better response from the PEEP program. But at some point, it's a serious critical discussion that our membership needs to have and say, can we afford $150 more now so that next year we only see a $10, $15, $50 increase as opposed to these ginormous increases that we keep eating. And even our system this year is a smaller increase than what we're seeing in average at the state level. So we don't like the increase we're feeling right now, but it's smaller than what's happening on average statewide.
Is that, we're good for sequence? All right, Jamie?
I just wanted to add, with Neopath, we sat down and decided what the benefit for our members, how can we make it better? If it was a benefit, then what's the best way to use that money? Put it back into the health insurance, and we quickly found out that we're actually locked into the Neopath plan for another year. And there's only $27,000, so it's really nothing compared to the Neopath plan. Other than that information, try to make it the best that it can be as this month.
All right. Yes, Mr. Douglas.
First of all, I'd like to thank you and these negotiators for your time and effort and very trying and frustrating. I appreciate the work that you've done. My question, I understand that it's not negotiable, but can you give us some insight into the district's fund balance? Because as you stated, in current year, and comments have been made, we've essentially gone backward in terms of compensation for the last 6 years. Why has the district, or what steps has the district taken to put themselves in a position where the fund balance is so incredibly low?
The short answer is I don't know. That would be as a taxpayer in the district, I also wonder that, but something that also is, I mean, there are increasing costs. I mean, gas has gone up, how much? Insurance continues. All those things, again, even to that. And the other thing that we have going on is, I mean, 5 years ago, we were in the worst housing market imaginable. And as an exurb, which is what I think St. Francis is, we're the last ones to grow. We're also the first ones to see that decline when people move. And I mean, numerically speaking, we've lost, I think we'll be really close to about 5,000 students, K through 12. And when I came in here with classes of 500 and 524 students 10 years ago, we were talking about a system when those guys were seniors that was really close to 5,800 kids. I mean, 800 kids times $5,000 or $6,000. We're talking about cutting $4.8, $5, $6 million. And again, if I had the solution to why people are moving away from St. Francis, I can tell you anecdotally, I live on Zion Parkway. There are more houses that have gone up in the last year than I saw in the last 5 years. So I really think that, again, as the housing market comes back, hopefully we get into one of those positive cycles where we're out of declining enrollment, we're starting to add back student enrollment. And I think the other kind of mitigating factor in all of this is people haven't retired at the same rate because there has been that financial, I guess, insecurity with, well, what is the market going to do? How am I going to afford this? And that's just, again, that's a matter of the facts. And we've tried to advocate for incentives for people to retire on schedule, as the district would call it. But the district isn't overly, I'll just leave it. Yeah, Chris.
Part of it might be the elephants in the room that people don't want to hear about, but it's, in many districts, your top earners, or top salary, would be people that have been, you know, a lot of credits, 25, 30 years. At this district, and districts can fix their costs because, you know, there's gonna be an incremental. In this district, every 3 years, teachers get a very significant jump. We have a large percentage of our staff, district-wide, that are at grade 3. That doesn't happen in other districts where you have such a large percentage of your staff that are very high. It's no secret. It's simple mathematics. The district knows it. We are in, yeah, we're, like I said, we have our fund balance is in up shape.
We have, I think, 324 FTEs or full-time equivalents. The people down here at Career 3, it's about a sixth of our teaching staff. It's like 58 members or thereabouts. Is that the reason that we're in the financial? I don't think that's the only reason. I think it's a lot of reasons. And yep, sure, that's a reason. I would also say that I've done the math, and numerically speaking, the steps and lane system, if you got a step in a lane every year, you increase at a greater rate than even SPIP. If you do a step in a lane each year. Now, the great thing is you don't have to pay for fatigue credits through SPIP and all kinds of other things, but we'll keep moving because we only got 20 minutes left. Okay, unfreezing hip tip. So this is again one of our priorities. These are people who have been frozen for 6 going on 7 years. They're going to get a schedule improvement again of 1.46%. They get 1 step of movement for the 14-15 school year. All right. And again, this is just a fact. These people have not had any movement. We have people who are now 6 or 7 or 8 years down the road, and because of where they were on the salary schedule when people transitioned, they haven't had any increase in salary. Like literally none. All right, so that was one of our concerns, and we addressed that. They'll get movement for the upcoming school year, and again, that 1.46% has been applied to that salary schedule as well.
If you're an if person and you move, will you be moving on your, you know, I'm a year 19.
Yep.
According to the district, that means if I transition with math plus 60, I'll look at my transition to career 1. With 19 years and 60 credits, that's where I am. So it makes me, if they want, if the district has made it clear that they want people to transition, I don't need to transition. But I really don't want to transition to career 1.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering if you think years of service, if you decide to transition, or
That hasn't come up that did not come up directly in negotiations, but I think that's going to be addressed. We have let's see, where is it? We'll get to it eventually, but basically we have a committee that's set up that is going to look at the entire SPIP MOU. And the reason I'm talking about that with you, Chris, is that the rules in there guide your transition. So we want to, and the state law is that no one can go backwards. Great. In a case like yours, you might next year be at step 13, and then I think after that you get into the third increments, if I remember correctly about the diff salary schedule. So again, that might be a matter of timing. I can't know without getting into more details, but we can talk about that afterwards too. Okay, but again, a committee will be set up to look at this SPIP MOU, including mentoring. Mentor pay is staying the exact same way that it has throughout its history, but mentoring will be addressed by that committee along with everything else under the SPIP MOU.
Question.
Oh. There we go. Yes.
I was just curious as to why it was decided that if
Good question. That was. So basically, every time we talked about, well, let's increase the stipend, let's do this. The district said, that's fine, but we're gonna take that and we're gonna cost that against you. And the board has, and maybe this starts to answer some of Chris's question as well, the board has stated that it's an earned advancement. So if you wanna move horizontally on the IPTIP salary schedule, you're at MA plus 30, you can move to MA plus 45. That would be an earned advancement. But the district at this point, and the board specifically, has a philosophical opposition to anything other than an earned advancement. And that one step of movement, that's what we could get. And I know that doesn't make people in here who are IPTIP staff members full because you've been frozen for that long, but that's what we could get. And that movement was costed against the settlement. They went through and they said, we have this many staff members, one step of movement's gonna be this.
Vertically.
Vertically. So if you were at career incentive, career step 2, you'd move to career step 3. Because the assumption is you've been in the district so long that because you've been frozen for 6 years, you're gonna get that. Was that? Did I see a hand over? Yes. I think we have 23. We have one person who's on an extended leave. And then we have 2 retired. So we got you down to 21. 21 members. We're a victim. All right, calculation of present release time. This is a cost savings through the union. Your union dollars go to pay for a halftime president release. In the past, it was, we had a halftime middle school teacher, we hired a teacher halftime, and it cost maybe $15,000. That started to change under previous HR director, who put in the actual cost. So it was no longer $15,000 cost. All of a sudden, the union got a bill for, I'm going to make up an asinine number, but $41,000. Because you were paying for one half of that person instead of the person who was taking on the other half of that person's job. We wanted a fixed cost. Just like the district has a fixed cost when it comes to their insurance. You get $510 if you're single, you get $1,200 towards family insurance. We wanted a fixed cost as well. And the cost that we came up with was one half of an FTE. So it's in our contract that the union president, if it's a teacher, doesn't have to always be a teacher, will be $31,000. That's a cost savings to us. Again, we wanted a fixed cost. Just like you have a budget, you're at home, you got a car payment, it's gonna cost me $212 a month. It's whatever number that is times 12 will be your yearly payment. We wanted the same thing here, a fixed cost. It's also a cost that does recoup us a small amount of money as well. Yes, Ms. Ernie. So in the past, 2 HR directors ago, the cost was whatever it costs the district to replace that person halftime. 1 HR director ago, it was costed at the actual cost of that person. We wanted again to lock in a fixed cost so we could budget for it. So we didn't go from $15,000 one year to $42,000 one year and then flip back to this. We wanted a fixed cost. And this also happens to be a cost that is less than what we're paying. And it makes sense. I mean, you do the actual person, they always cost us at, here's the average teacher salary. Well, we use the average teacher salary, that's one half. So some other agreements, equalization of sub rates. I know there's been a little confusion about this. If you're a high school teacher, you saw that $40.33 per period. And at high school, it's a 60-minute period. And when you did the math on that, it turns out to be $35.58 an hour. If you were a middle school or elementary teacher, you got paid at $34.91 an hour. So you're getting a 94 cents an hour raise if you decide to, or if you're asked to go in and sub. And to tell you how adamant the district was at costing this, the district actually doesn't have a way to go through and find out how many hours people subbed in. If you've ever gray sheeted anything, that's the same salary code. It doesn't matter if you're an EA or you're in nutrition services or you're a teacher and you went in and sub, it's the same code. So they said, well, we can't do that. That's going to be so expensive. And we asked, well, how much was there on gray sheets? There's $1 million. $1 million in gray sheets, and you divide it out, it's $34 an hour divided by a million, it's 3,000, 30,000 hours times 94 cents. So you're gonna cost 94 cents an hour. If all those $1 million were substitute teaching, it would cost the district $20,000. You're gonna cost that against us. Yes, we're gonna cost that against you. It's gonna be taken out of your 1%. That's how penny pinching they were this time. Luckily, Scott Nelson finally said, this is ridiculous. We don't have $1 million in something. We said, exactly, that's the point. You didn't spend $1 million on subs. You probably spent a quarter of that, maybe. So why are we quibbling over $5,000? Shut up and give us the 94 cents an hour. It's not a big deal. And again, it equalizes that rate across the district. Yes, Mr. Lorenzo.
With the new prep time language, does that protect our prep time from subbing?
The district has the right of assignment. They can tell you to go in and sub on your prep.
But our prep time is protected under contract, right? Now.
Yes,
Now.
but you're being paid. If they pay you, they can't make you go in and sub and not pay you. They can't make you go in and sub and pay you. The district has that right of assignment. I don't like it, you don't like it, the district still has that right and that ability to do it. Mr. Lipinski.
And I think it's, the sub rate at the high school in 68 minutes remains the same.
Yes, it'll still be $40.33.
Doesn't drop down to 55.
No, that's per hour, because we have 8 additional minutes, it's 1/7 of 35.58 times, there you go. We can have Teresa help you out. All right. Okay, transfer day. One of the things that came up in negotiations was, if you transfer, if you move from kindergarten, you've taught it for 15 years, and all of a sudden you're transferred up to the 3rd grade team, that's a big transition. You might move from the west side of the district to the east side of the district. You might have been teaching social studies for 15 years, and now we really need you to teach science. Well, traditionally, when a staff member is asked, they've been given up to a day, up to 8 hours, to go over to that site, to meet with those people, to find out, to figure out what's going on. Who do I talk to about copying machines? How do I get a set of keys? What room am I going to be in? All those things. So this is in the contract. So if you know someone this year or next year, and hopefully in perpetuity, who is being transferred, please encourage them to take a transfer day so they can hit the ground running, because we know that's what's best for students. But a teacher knows where the copy machine is. And when you got 4 minutes of passing time at the middle school and you got to go to the bathroom, you don't have to run around and figure out where the staff laboratory is. You know exactly where it is. Mr. Lipinski.
Obviously, that applies to me because I went to middle school last year and now I'm coming back. So, can I gray sheet that time?
No.
I can't. Because all my work, for instance, in going to middle school last year, which falls under that contract, was done outside of the regular school day, moving supplies and stuff.
That's not going to be retroactive.
Okay, and so I can put in for 8 hours to take off a day to work on those things or go shadow somebody, is that correct?
You can apply to the administrator, and the administrator will up to 8 hours.
This
Yours should have been part of my French. Yes.
So this doesn't mean you're gonna be paid an additional 8 hours of time for putting in this work that's not regular school day. This is saying you get to take a day off when you're already scheduled to be teaching and the district will pay.
Correct.
How does that help you? I mean, seriously, if I'm going to second grade, I need a day off to do this work, not the day once I'm already teaching.
Well,
Okay, I would tell you,
I don't get
well,
it.
It's also to meet with the teams that are there, new teams. So if I am going from special ed to social studies, that gave me, or would have given me the opportunity to meet with that department.
But are they working?
They,
No.
don't they ever meet?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. This last year I had Rockland meetings over at Crossroads. He took his 8 hours, he came in, it's very different climate. Being at Crossroads and being at middle school, some big meetings. But mainly different, right? Came in, had a chance to meet everyone in our department, got a chance to sit in and see what our classes were, meet the people meet in the building, get accustomed to what things are gonna be and really just get curriculum from people who are currently teaching that subject. What do you use? What am I gonna need to get from curriculum? All to have these conversations. I'm with you in the sense that it would be great for some people, that works excellent. For some people, it might be moving your classroom when the school year is done to another place. And we've had in our building, I don't know, Gail, she's here, but she was asked, she came in, she moved our science room, and then she moved to another room. It's a mess. We don't have a solution for that summer move, but if that's going to continue to be an issue and we're going to move people around, that's something next negotiation we can definitely write up and we'll.
yeah, to put it succinctly, it's a step in the right direction.
Well, absolutely.
And yeah, it's not perfect, but again, it's like the special education language. We brought it up last time in negotiations, we took a positive step forward this time. We're gonna take another positive step forward in the next negotiation session. So yeah, you're right. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna work for everyone, unfortunately, but it is a step in the right direction. Building access, that's basically if everything's become acrimonious between the union and the district. Education Minnesota always has the right to reserve a wonderful room like this, and they can't deny. Retroactivity, again, this is primarily paid. That goes to July 2013, excuse me. And then there were some housekeeping items of Schedule C and D. Yes.
Part of C and D, the FPAC suggested that we're adding back activities at the middle school. Has that been done? I mean,
That's a question for the new middle school principal.
what year's almost to start? I guess the answer is no.
I'm not the middle school principal or a member of the district administration.
But I mean, the things are on Schedule C and D, right? The coaching position, the advisory position.
Correct.
All that's on Schedule C and D.
Correct.
But we haven't arranged for any programs.
Correct. I'm, again, not an administrator and I don't schedule those programs. But I would love to see middle school athletics. As a parent of a fourth grader, kindergartner, and one who's 4 years old, I would love for them to have something to do after school at the middle school. I'm sure so would a lot of middle school teachers. Insurance, yeah, no benefit increase to any group. Hasn't mattered. And that's just, again, the lay of the land. We kind of talked about that with Pete. And then lastly, the SPIF MOU. That's the memorandum of understanding. That's the thing that guides basically the entire teacher academy, professional development process, the teacher leadership positions like curriculum specialists and instructional specialists and peer leaders. And that's going to be looked at. And specifically mentoring and mentoring started off as a cost savings for the district. It was, here's a way we can recoup some money and we can give it back to you. And that didn't make a lot of sense to us that we'd ask 220 people to take their $1,000 and divide it up between 324 people, but then they dropped it. We're not going to talk about mentoring And that came up again. And this is where I have to be brutally honest. Some of the comments that people made to school board members, whether it was in person, over the phone, via email, or even snail mail, people lost professionalism, they swore, and they demonized members of the school board. And that came up in negotiations. Here's what your teachers did. Here's what your staff did. And it wasn't helpful. And as a result of that, the mentor thing no longer became a cost savings for the district. It became we have a philosophical opposition to this. And oh, by the way, you want to save some money too. And we also heard from members who said, look, well, we didn't hear from them. Unfortunately, they went to school board members and told them, and then it got to us. And that, again, was not really helpful. But members of ours went to school board members and said, look, I've mentored for 8 years. Or last year, I mentored 2 people, and I got paid the same amount as that Mike Stoffel guy, who's only mentored once in 7 years. That's not okay. That pisses me off. And I understand. So, mentoring is one of the things that will be addressed by the SPIP MOU committee. Along with that, I'm sure it'll address a number of other things. But you have to be ready and willing to give us feedback. To give us as a negotiating team feedback, to give Joe feedback, to give that committee feedback. That's the only way this gets better for people. If you're pissed off about something, that's okay. I get fired up about a lot of things. But if you never talk to anybody about it, it doesn't really do any good. So if you do have a concern about any of those things related to SPIP, the Teacher Academy, professional development, mentoring, stipends, blah, 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 please, there'll be a committee set up. Talk to people on the committee. Write an email. Give it to the negotiating team. We're here to listen. And please, keep the talk with the school board professional. Because that really came back. And it was almost a case of self-sabotage. Where it was like, we're going along. Oh, by the way, and the shoe dropped. And it was not helpful whatsoever. Keith, and then
I wasn't done up with those comments to the school board. But I do have a final comment because I sense we're kind of coming to the end here.
oh, it's 5 o'clock. Oh yeah, questions, right?
Honestly, this isn't the best contract in the world. And, I've been frustrated with the pace of this year and how it's gone on. I've been frustrated at times because I felt that we could have done more. And I felt at times that we should have been working a little maybe in January or February. And, my viewpoint on that, Bush's viewpoint on that is somewhat different. I wonder where we might have been if we had done that. But also with that, I think I've got to understand, and we better remember this negotiating session, that a lot of times, some of the problems that we have, we only have to look in the mirror. Because we have 325 people that are members of this union. And maybe there's another meeting, maybe there's not, I don't know, whatever. But, you've got 70, 80 people. And I hear stories that, well, so-and-so groups aren't even walking in together, so-and-so groups aren't wearing red, or anything else. And if those people are frustrated and they're not here today, and they're frustrated with the settlement, then look in the mirror. Because we hear about what happens in Anoka, all their teachers show up and yell and scream and sing songs and chant and do their thing. And how they go to work to go and how they're working together as a group. And so if you're frustrated with the contract, and this is your first meeting, then go home and look in the mirror. And keep in mind, we're only another year away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the other thing, is we got to the point in mediation especially where we strongly believe as a negotiating team, this is the best offer we can get. And the other thing is, like Keith just talked about, is This is gonna start again in February or March. And that's not to say how you should vote, how you vote is your business, but it's gonna start again. Whether we like it or not, whether the district likes it or not, I mean, the district is behind, they're also behind. They haven't talked to the principals yet. Give you an idea, or they're gonna go right into our mediation. Ms. Orphan.
Has the district given any reason as to why we need to suddenly go with that extra 5% for the fund balance instead of gradually increasing it? I mean, obviously this didn't just magically snap to so low overnight. Why do they suddenly want to start increasing it so low?
That's a great question. Short answer is 5% is the minimum. Yeah, so Teresa asked, why all of a sudden did we have to get to 5% overnight for the fund balance? 5% is the minimum. And again, when we're talking about the end of this contract, we think the fund balance will be at 5%, but 5% would again put us probably at either the first or second lowest fund balance out of 26 districts. We're 2 times below the average.
See, and I think they actually believe this is their little step. You know what I mean? It's really disheartening to hear that, but for them, they look at it and it's 1.4. That's the difference. That's the real frustrating part.
But I just feel like we didn't manage this money to be where they're at in fund balance, and it seems like it's what we're hearing. You know, we balance, or should you say, your own household, you save your money, you make your decision, and now here we are, we're gonna pay the price because they didn't do their job and manage the money the way they need to. And it's just pretty frustrating.
I would say express your frustration to them. And I would love to say, hey, I am the all-powerful lord of the district, but I'm a worker bee just like everybody else. I mean, the people we need to talk to and express that frustration to are school board members. Your question, Ms. Orban, needs to be asked to school board members. And needs to be asked to Dave Roberts and Betsy Road and Barb Janke and Ms. Marsha Vandenberg and Janet Glover and
Amy Kelly.
Amy Kelly and Susan Irvin. There I go, all 7. All right, we're gonna go in descending order. So we're gonna start with Mr. Schmidt.
Well, since we're talking about fund balance, you said we're more than 2 times less than some of the districts. Let's just say that this isn't gonna be an issue for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 negotiations. And they're always gonna throw out fund balance, we don't have enough, we don't get it.
And that's where we need to be, and this is where I'm gonna turn it back to what Keith said, is we have to be active in the community. We have to go out and say, look, I'm a high school teacher, the teachers at the high school, they took on additional class, and they're not gonna get paid for that per se, and we kept class sizes down. We have tamped down teacher costs, but now we need to turn to our neighbors and say, look, we haven't asked for the sun and the moon and the wind and the stars. We asked for things that are very reasonable, that hopefully keep us at our current salary, or maybe a slight increase. But most of us are probably, unless you're seeing movement throughout the schedule, you're seeing a net loss out of pocket. That's the bottom line. And I'd love to say I can solve that for you, but that has to be I think I counted 84 people in here, going out to 84 other people and talking about what the situation is in our district. And we do need to get increased, because one of the key phrases is the accountability. When additional accountability. Well, some of that accountability also has to come from our school board to superintendent, to directors, to principals, not just to teachers, but to everybody. And we have to start those conversations with our neighbors. And the next time you go over to your neighbor's house and you're having a beer in the garage, and it's, hey, yeah, we can really use your support for whatever it is. Talk to people about that. But if we sit here with our hands in our pockets, you're right, it's not gonna change. We can't make more kids appear, we can't magically increase funding, but there are small things that we can do to do that. All right, I wanna keep going down, I'm gonna snake down here, and then I'm gonna go back up to Mr. Meshman. Mr. Waterworth first.
Okay,
go back to the table.
Mhm.
You go back to the table and you pick up and say, look, obviously this wasn't good enough for our membership.
And everything starts over.
And I mean,
Everything's back on the
basically it's a
table.
reset. John, you
And I
have
would
another?
say, and I'd like to see, that is, your middle school, we're sitting here, and my school says talking. There's, after 2 years of being incidents, I would have been standing here if I didn't think that I could get you guys here. Now, I'm not saying, Kyle or John or some of you guys in here, if you think that you can do better than this, and, I'm not gonna feel offended. If this doesn't pass, we need someone else to step up and do that charge, because I can't bring the meetings out of once here. And when I set out to do this, I had a list of like 8 or 9 things that we talked about. Bringing some type of unity to the union, across, high school, middle school, elementary, wherever you're at. We talk about number of minutes, we talk about number of what grade fee you get paid for yourself, we talk about transcripts. All those different things are different in all different buildings. And when Mike says that these are problems that are created by us, they really were. Those are things that were put into the contract, then were pulled back at different times and put out there at different times to really be divisive issues. And they have been divisive. And the meetings we've had this year have been very heated. And I think, in that regard, this contract does certainly bring unity is there. I know I've taken some flack from high school teachers saying, well, why don't we level it up? Why don't we go from middle school and put more money there? I don't know if you saw in there that my first plan was not to, eliminate a 12-class schedule. We came up, we sat down all summer, worked out a schedule. I don't know how many with Ms. Hume, with our counseling staff, with our special ed teachers, from all over. Came up with a great schedule, which took those into account. Get my grandmother's wait to be there, right? At the end of that, no, we're not doing it. District manager, right? So we start over again. Look at 3 or 4 different ways of moving about to it. I think that this schedule is one, or this contract is one where it does start to build some of that unity that's there. I know that we have a lot of teachers in the room that are upset with 12 classes. I get that. I look at it and I said, this year, the district office must have saw this coming, that this is one of the first years that all high school teachers have been asked to step up and teach that 12 class. Not that they wanted before, but it was never offered. When I was at my school, it was a very contentious issue. Who was going to get a chance to teach that 12 class? It was divisive in my own department at times. Because there's one class. There's 6 veteran teachers. They all want it. That's money. This is a way to share that money with people. When we talk about the enrollment, what's our enrollment going to be here 10 years from now? Are we going to be able to get what we got for that class 10 years from now when we base the number of sections that are being taught on that money? And those are things that we took into consideration when saying, is this a fair price that's there? Is that money, is there a way to spread some of those things equally? The fact that it doesn't cost anyone a job. And I was here in the high school for 5 years, and I sat there every year with contract one. Well, if they sell back to 12 class, that's 6 teachers gone. I lost my job. That's not an issue right now for people in the room. And this, if our district is more financially sound, that hopefully won't be an issue in the future. $715,000 on the front of your sheet that was there that came at us. We were told, I was told, at school board meetings in our places, all day kindergarten will not cost them. Now we're paying back $715,000. It came out of money that we could use for ourselves. People are mad about insurance, right?
Where are you paying that back to? Because that came out of compensatory.
They're paying back compensatory funds.
They borrow.
Like they take it from compensatory, shuffle it over to here. Now that they have the money, they say, we've got to shuffle that back to compensatory funds.
But that was never ever discussed.
You're right. I agree with you 100%. It's what we've been touting through the whole contract. It's how we were expecting to get a larger raise, and then you look at the money and you see how it moves, and that's where we end up. And that's why this team feels like this is the best settlement we can get.
Okay, but Brian, I want to ask you another question. That $715,000 for all the everyday, they want you to pay compensatory back. Who all of a sudden made that decision?
say it's the finance director. I mean, he decides where the money goes, yeah.
FPAC also. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, that's just to show you what that committee involves and what it compares to our app. The message that gets brought out there is really this meeting, and it's awesome, clearly that points there was.
All right, it's 5:20. If you have any other questions, we'll stick around and answer them. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Thank you very much for showing up. If you're going to use an absentee ballot, please make sure you get that in the mail. It needs to be received by the 18th. We'll be voting back here next Monday between 4 and 5 p.m. It'll be tallied up between 5 and 6, and we'll have the results pretty shortly after that. Thank you very much. And again, if you have questions, come on up. Don't be afraid to ask. Thank you for coming. If you